My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken. How long will you assault a man? Would all of you throw him down this leaning wall, this tottering fence? They fully intend to topple him from his lofty place. They take delight in lies. With their mouths they bless, but in their hearts they curse. Selah. Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. My hope comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depends on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in Him at all times, O people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. Selah. Lowborn men are but a breath. The highborn are but a lie. If weighted on a balance, they are nothing. Together they are only a breath. Do not trust in extortion or take pride in the stolen goods. Though your riches increase, do not set your heart on them. One thing God has spoken, two things have I heard, that you, O God, are strong, and that you, O Lord, are loving. Surely you will reward each person according to what he has done. Amen. Psalm 62 is a poem written by King David. David is famous. We all know David. People who have been to church for maybe once or twice can even know David. David, despite of being the hero of Israel, who defeated the giant Goliath, and being the most famous general of the first kingdom of Israel, he lived a life of refuge. His own king, the father-in-law, King Saul, tried to kill him out of jealousy. So he had to run. He had to live a life of refuge for many years. His life was not always filled with glory and triumphs. Even after he became the king of Israel. In fact, his life was also filled with betrayals and death, surrounded by many enemies. Even today's poem, he is complaining how he is surrounded by liars and betrayers looking for a chance to dethrone him. His own son betrayed him, right? However, in his life of trial and tribulations, he stood strong, never lost hope, and never lost dreams. Even in the darkest time of his life, when nothing he could do might change anything at all, he never gave up. How was he able to do it? How come he was not shaken from all these trials and tribulations? As he confesses through today's psalm, he relied on God. God his back. He trusted God that he would always have his back. He believed that God would never forsake him. God would be his source of hope and refuge, even in the midst of all these trials and hardships. It was God and God alone who made him strong in heart and soul. Only God. No one or nothing else. Despite being an excellent soldier at the time when he was running away from King Saul, and powerful king after he became the king of Israel, he never relied on his abilities and his wealth and power. He put his trust on God alone. The only one that he trusted in his life was God. Why? Because his glories and his triumphs and successes are not of his own. It was not his own. He didn't succeed. He didn't glorify himself or had all these triumphs because he had these abilities. No. He became the hero of Israel when he defeated the giant Goliath, right? We all know the story of David versus Goliath, the impossible fight between small boy and the giant, right? He didn't defeat Goliath with his power He couldn't because he was just a small boy. And what's important is that he didn't intend to fight against Goliath with his power or his wit. He knew anyone could defeat Goliath when he is with God. He knew that. He was trying to tell others that if you are with God, the giant is nothing. But nobody believed him. Nobody listened to him. So he tried to prove it by himself. A little boy trying to prove that with God, anything can be possible. So what he did was to prove it with a single stone. He only took 5 pebbles, right? And with one single stone, he was able to defeat Goliath. He proved it. Not only that, he became the king of Israel because he defeated King Saul. He didn't defeat him, right? King Saul killed himself. He became because of God's will. In fact, he could have been long dead if God was not looking out for him. Save him from Saul and his countless many other enemies trying to kill him. And he knew this. He never forgot this. He knew he is what he is because of God. Because God was looking out for him. God always had his back. He had someone to lean on, to rely on. He knew he will always find shelter and place to rest in God, even when he is running away from someone. Doesn't matter where. It could be in the cave because David often hid inside the cave. But that place, that shady, the cave, that some people can't even call it home, it was a resting place for David because God was with him. And we need to remember this. We must believe it. I'm not talking about just understand it. I'm talking about we must believe it. We need to live a life safe in the hands of our God because we deserve it. And we are worthy. Not just David, we all are children of God, right? We call ourselves children of God. Now, our lives, just like David, is also filled with trials and tribulations. Our life is not easy. Our life is hard, right? And for many, these trials can be hard enough that we lose hope, we become powerless, and sometimes we give up everything because the trial is too hard for us. And many of us are even born in an environment where we could never feel safe and have nothing or no one to rely on. There are many of us who are born into places like this. No safety, no one to rely on, nothing to rely on. That is true. And when we are having those kind of environment, we could never hope to dream or have even hope itself. It feels like we can't achieve anything in our lives. It feels like we can't do anything in our lives. And when we live a life like that for a long enough time, we become unable to trust anyone or trust anything. That's what's happening in our lives, right? And David also had such a life. We often mistake that David was having a good life, blessed life. That there's a reason for David to become a strong king and powerful king and, a smart person. No, actually. David was not so different from us. When he was born with physical attributes that were not favorable at his time. He didn't have firm body. He didn't have muscular body. Actually, he was thin like me. At that time, at David's time, if you're born with small body, no muscular body, you're considered to be useless. Because you can't fight, right? With such body, you cannot fight anyone. You can't go to war. He was born like that. He was born with such a weak body, I think, compared to his six other brothers. Because his father Jesse had seven sons. Six other older brothers of David were, fine, okay. But David, not so much. When Samuel, who is a very famous prophet at his time, Samuel came to his family, to Jesse, and asked to show him his sons. And his father, David's father, Jesse, only showed six of his sons. And God was saying, wow, that person. When he first saw Eliab, the first son, the oldest son of Jesse, and Samuel thought, that's the guy, looking strong, powerful. He must be the next king. And God said, no, that's not him. And the second son, no, that's not him. And third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And after seeing all six brothers, Prophet Samuel asked Jesse, is it all? And his father, Jesse, said, I have one more son, but he's tending sheep. When he says tending sheep, that means my final youngest son is nobody. He's just tending sheep. And Samuel said, bring him. That is how David was not being taken seriously to his own father. He was not worthy to be shown to Prophet Samuel. You might think that because David was just a boy, so he's too young, that's why his father didn't show him. But when you think of it, his other sons were boys too. Because when you look at the story after this event, Philistines invaded Israel, and there were only 3 brothers who went to the war. 3 brothers were old enough to go to war, which means his other 3 older brothers were boys too. So Jesse showed 3 adults and 3 boys to Prophet Samuel. So his father didn't show him because he's too young. His father didn't show Prophet Samuel David because he's not so worthy. He's just a boy who tending sheep. You don't let anyone to tend the sheep. Actually, tending sheep is not the job for master's son's, job. David is the master, son of the master of the household, right? Tending sheep is actually the job for the servants. You don't just, let's say I am the father of this household. I have 2 sons, right? I don't let my son to, go, hey, your little boy, go tend the pigs, tend the cows. No. These are my sons, right? So I give them something important, right? But David was tasked with tending sheep. Imagine how David's life could have been. His own father didn't support him. His family didn't support him because remember when Philistines invaded Israel, his father told David, bring these foods to your brothers. They must be starving. So David went there, and he was shocked that forces of Israel was so afraid to face this single giant. And he was going around asking, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And his 3 older brothers, especially the eldest, Eliab, was so angry. What are you doing? You little boy, you're not supposed to be here. And he said, go tend the sheep. So his own brothers didn't, support him. He was not recognized as worthy son, not worthy brother. He didn't have anyone to rely on. Nobody took seriously about him. You see, I was really shocked when I read the story about this invasion of Philistines. When David came to Saul, that David said, "I'm going to face this giant," and King Saul said, How are you going to do? How can you do it? You're just a little boy. And David said, you know what? I rescued a sheep from a lion and a bear by all myself. Now, David told Saul this probably, right? I was really shocked when I heard this story, because I wasn't shocked because he was able to defeat lion. I wasn't shocked that he was able to defeat bear. I was shocked because he had to go alone. Think about it. He's just a little boy, right? A little boy going against a lion and a bear? He could have been killed. Usually, when a lion and bears, like beasts, come to the village and takes away a sheep or cow or any animal, whole village is warned, and a hunting party will be formed, and bunch of people will go to hunt this beast because it is dangerous. Children would never be part of the hunting party, but David was a little boy, and he alone went to get a sheep and faced a lion, a bear. Why? Because he had no one to rely on. He had to go all by himself. He didn't want to tell his father or brother, a lion came and then a bear came and grabbed a sheep. Then, what will happen? His father and brother will say, I knew this was going to happen because you can't even tend the sheep and let a lion take that sheep. Maybe he was afraid that he might be criticized by his father. So he went there alone. I don't think when he first a lion came and took the sheep, I don't think he was so confident. God will be with me. I don't think so. Maybe out of fear being criticized, he went there alone to save a sheep. And then he realized, because he's got no one or nothing to rely on, maybe he was going to find the sheep, to find the lion. Maybe he was praying, God, be with me. I have no one to rely on. I have no one to protect me. And then, when he defeated a lion with this single, stone, maybe at that time he realized, wow, I don't have to rely on my father. I don't have to rely on my brother. When I rely on God, this kind of miracle can happen. So, ever since then, whenever a beast came along and grabbed a sheep, he went there to rescue a sheep alone, because he was at that time confident. Now I know God is with me. God has my back. That is why he faced those beasts, a lion and a bear alone. Not because he chose to believe in God, not because he chose to rely on God, but because he had to rely on God. He had to believe in God because he got no one else to rely on. That is exactly what we must do. What you must do, what I must do. That is exactly what David is telling us through this today's psalm. David is telling us only God has your back. If you're feeling that you have no one else to rely on and no one to trust, and there are nothing you can do to make things better, don't give up. Don't give up. Do not put your trust in wrongful things like extortion and stolen goods, as David is telling us today through Psalm. David is telling us through this scripture today, don't rely on extortion and stolen goods. All those monies, all this wealth, even your health, they mean nothing. They can help you. Instead, like David, put your trust in God. Believe in God. Believe God as your refuge. Believe God as your hope. Believe God as your salvation. I know it is difficult to believe it. I know. It's not something that you can just one day, God has my back. I know it. No. It doesn't happen like that. It is hard to believe it. It is difficult to put trust in God and hope that things will be better. I know it's difficult. Anyone can feel the same. That is why we have people like David to be an example, to see through these people that to believe in God, to put trust in God is the only way that we can be safe in this world. And to show us that it is possible for us to change. I also had that doubt. When I was a little boy, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that putting trust in God can change people's life. I didn't believe it, because I couldn't believe it. I knew the story of David because my father was a minister. I know all these stories about all these Bible characters. I knew. And I knew how much David put his trust in God, but I just couldn't believe it because it's a story, right? It's written in the Bible. I never saw it happen. How can I believe it, right? I just had to see it myself. I had to see actually someone changing his life through putting trust in God. I had to see it. Because I have to confess, I'm a minister, but I'm a very mistrusting person. I don't trust anything or anyone because that's my personality. When I was a boy, I didn't even believe in the textbook. I had to test it. I was a kind of very, very difficult child in the church because I always asked this difficult question. Whenever Bible school teachers told us something, and I would say, why? I can believe it. Do you believe it? I was that kind of difficult child. I had to see something myself. And that's exactly what I did. I saw how people's lives can be changed. I saw it. People with no hope and dreams. People with absolutely nothing to rely on. I personally saw them change. I saw them change from powerless, hopeless, and dreamless people to vital and dreamful people. I saw them not only change themselves, but helped others to change too, inspiring others to change. When our family went to Philippines on year 1991 as a missionary, because my father was a missionary, my father began his mission in the place called Smoky Mountain in Tondo, Manila. It is not an actual mountain. It was a city-sized landfill. Landfill is a trashes being thrown. They just fill the land with trashes, right? There were so many trashes, landfill became a mountain. That's why they call it Smoky Mountain. And constantly under that landfill, there's a fire. Because in the beginning of the landfill, they tried to burn it. And while it was burning, they threw out trashes again. So it was the layer after layers. It was trashes, and inside there were burning fire under the ground. Actually, it's not a ground, it's just trashes anyway. So constantly there would be some explosions. Once you're walking and there would be fire bursting out from the ground, and every day people were killed by this fire. There were people living inside that mountain. It's a slum. People would live there picking up trash and trying to sell those trashes again to, recycling companies. If you live in places like that, you can't hope anything. There's no school. There's no hospital. There's no police. One time we went to our church because we built a church inside Smoky Mountain. There were a shootout. People were killed in front of us. They were just shooting each other while we were trying to go to church. So many children, I've seen so many people, so many church members being killed because of that fire coming out from the ground, from the trash. They don't bother sending their children to school because they know their children's future is already set. You can't go anywhere because if you're born in a place like that, you don't just go somewhere else and get a job because people will not take you seriously. Are you from Smoky Mountain? Nah, go away, pick up some trash. And we built the church in that place. And in there, as we continue our mission, I saw these people changing. Before, they couldn't rely on anything and anyone. When they started to rely on God, they began to change. They began to send their children to school. When we first built school, they didn't send their children because they said, what's the point? What's the point of sending our children to the school? So what if they learn anything? But when they realized, when they heard about all the characters of the Bible who changed their lives to rely on God, they tried to hope. And slowly they began to dream. And they sent their children to school. And you know what happened? After 4 years, Smoky Mountain was reformed. They were relocated. The government gave them homes. It's another slum anyway, because they were living in the trash. Government wasn't taking them seriously. They just found another land and built these houses, not really well-built houses. And they just forced these people to those new place. They just relocated. But we also built a church in that area. And they were not the same people anymore. Children were being educated. They tried to get a job. They got the job. And our school began to accept more children, people who weren't even coming to the church. They began to dream. And the children actually, because they are educated, they were able to have better lives. And finally, around 1998, the church we built didn't needed our help anymore. They were able to support themselves. People who lived on the trash became a people who were better than the others who were living together in the slum. You know, people's lives can be changed. I saw it. Only when they rely on God, not themselves, not even their friends, not even their families. When they rely on God, I realized these impossible miracles and wonders can happen. You know, after seeing this miracle that's happening through the lives of these people in Smoky Mountain, I realized, wow, this is something. This is not just a story that's written in the paper book of Bible. This is something that can be also happen to me. If the people of Smoky Mountain, people who lived on the trashes, can be changed by putting trust in God, by believing in God, then anyone's life can be changed, right? Ever since the experience, I have lived my life trusting God. I know it's still difficult because being a person, being a human being, constantly we will be tested, right? We would forget. We would forget that God is standing behind us. I do too. Actually, David did too. You know, when you read about so many Psalms that he wrote, sometimes he be acting like as if he's not trusting in God. But in the same Psalm that he's written, he'd be like, no, I trust in God. I put myself completely to you, my Lord. I praise you. A minute after that praising, he would go like, but then my enemies are trying to kill me. What you going to do about me? I'm really having a hard time. I'm about to die. Then, minute after that complaint, he would go, I still praise you because you are the source of my life. You are the refuge of my life. You are the salvation of my life. Because David is a person. We all know that David also did terrible mistake, right? He committed adultery. To steal someone's wife, he even killed that person, right? We commit mistakes. You know, before I decided to start our own church congregation. There was nothing. I didn't have anything. I couldn't have any support. I didn't have any financial freedom to start a new church. At that time, I was filled with doubt in my heart. Can I do it? Should I do it? Like David, I have asked so many times to God, it is the will, our Lord. Is this my path? Do I have to walk this path? Actually, I've tried to start our new church community in other places too. And they told me that I can't do it because there are too many churches. I don't know what it means when they said too many churches. Many churches means many chances for the people to believe in God, right? But I think they had different ideas, so I wasn't able to start church communities. That happened for 3 times. After being, they call it being stopped by my own colleagues to start my own church community, I told myself, maybe it's time for me to give up. Because I couldn't rely on my friends, I couldn't rely on my own colleagues, my own fellow ministers, then how can I even start a church? But when I was about to give up everything, God allowed me to start my community here in Jeongo. In the first floor, you don't see many churches in first floor unless they have their own building, right? And this building belongs to one of the church member of other church. He's the elder of the church, and he was generous enough for us to start our church. Because when I was looking for a place to open our church congregation, those brokers told me, you can't get a place for a church because the owner of the building wouldn't let you start a church in their building because it's bad for their business. I don't know why it is bad for their business if the church is open in their building, but they told me it's hard to find a place for a church. And when I was about to give up again, God allowed me to find this place. Like David, like people in the Smoky Mountain, like me, you can change your life. Miracles can happen in your life. You can have a life that nothing can shake you. You can have a life where there will always be someone that has your back, someone to rely on. No matter what, even if you don't believe him, even if your trust is shaken, even if you have a doubt in your heart, someone will be behind you every time. Believe in God. Please, trust in God. Put your heart in God. Know that you have a place in God. And nobody else will take a side on you. Nobody else everyone else refuse to have your back. God will have your back. You deserve it. You're totally worth it. You're worthy to have God as your Savior. Don't let others tell you that you're not worthy. They don't know what they're talking about. You're worthy because you are the children of God. Because Jesus told us in Matthew chapter 11, verse 12, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That's what Jesus told us. Anyone, all, sinners, priests, doesn't matter. Boys, adults, doesn't matter. Sick or healthy, doesn't matter. All, you come to me and I'll give you rest. It's not so easy to believe, but if you do, you will get the rest. And Paul said in chapter 10, verse 11 to 13, Paul said, as the scripture says, anyone who trusts in him will never be put to shame. For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is Lord of all, and richly blesses all who call on him for. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Everyone, even the people in the Smoky Mountain. You know, when we had a mission in the Smoky Mountain, fellow missionaries told us that it is waste of time. They told us it is waste of time. You know, it is waste of resources. It is like pouring water into a broken pot. They will never change because they don't believe in themselves they can be changed. They told us. But they're wrong. Anyone can be changed. Anyone can be saved. And us, we can be changed. Let us be the one who can make others believe in this wisdom. Let us be the example. Let us not be like a person who reads David and says, wow, I want to be like him. No, you can be like him. You should be like David. Just like I was inspired by the people of Smoky Mountain, my life can also inspire others to believe in God. Your lives can be like this, like David, inspiring others. Wow, the person who has nothing to rely on, relies on the God, and his life is changing. Wow, her life is changing. You should be the example. That is our job as Christians. That is our job as children of God. So I urge you to believe in God, to trust in God. Put your heart in God. Be like David. Be the one that changes lives of so many others like David. And let others look at you and find God and shelter and safety. You can be the one. Don't doubt it, because so many people have proven it. David is not just a person written in the paper, because he was the prime example, and so many heard the story about David, and so many also had doubt like me. Is it possible? And so many of them experienced it first person, experienced it, and their lives also been changed. My life has been changed. Why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't they? So let us go out there and be an example. That we are worthy. That we can find refuge in God. That we can have trust in God. That our backs is always safe with God. Let us pray.